August 2021, tarehe 17 mwezi wa 8 mwaka 2021. Natumai kwamba uko salama na umeamka vizuri. Kama unakimbia pale ofisini au tayari ushafika pale ofisini, kama pia unaenda pale kwenye kazi, kwenye mjengo ama kwenye jua kali, natumai kwamba tayari ushaamka na tayari kuchapa kazi yako. Anasema kazi ni kazi, mboka ni mboka, wera ni wera. Haya, alipopote ulipo, natumai kwamba tayari ushaanza shughuli yako ya siku. It is the State of the Nation, the 17th of August 2021, and it is a tackle and it begins now. Kama kawaida on Tuesday tuna kitu ambayo inaitwa State of the Nation. Tunaangalia hali inchi ilivyo, the things that are going on in the country, uchumi, biashara na pia mambo ya siasa. Tunaweza kuangazia what's going on in the country and we get to have a conversation that you are enjoying in it. This is the State of the Nation, the 17th of August 2021, and it begins now. Lakini kama kawaida naomba ya kwamba when you join in, please like. When you like, I get to know that you are watching us, and after you like, please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. This is a tackle and it begins now. Tunaenda mbele za Mungu kuomba, alafu tukirudi tunakuja kuapa salamu zenu. Senje, utatuombea kwa tena leo?
Niwapeleke kwa Mungu.
Tupeleke kwa Mungu. Wajova wanyonyi. Haya, microphone yako nasikia.
All right.
Okay.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we thank you for this beautiful morning, Lord. We thank you for giving us the life, the energy, and even the strength to wake up today and come here today to just have a conversation about the direction the country is taking, Lord. We pray that you may guide our conversations, Lord. May we have discussions that will provide a direction for this country and just, provide clarity for the listeners and the viewers, Lord. We ask this, trusting and believing in Jesus' name.
Amen. 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 Asante sana Senje. Tuko na Khalende, mtu wa wheelbarrow, ndio chairman wa wheelbarrow kwa Western. Tuko na Ruth Ambogo kama kawaida, women rep Aspirant pale Vihiga. Sijui kama baada yako kwenye safari ama alishuka atatuambia. Khalende, mtu wa Matayos, pia naomba kile pale Matayos. Tuko na jamani tu Meshack Odede, yuko barabarani anakuja, anasema mpata puncture kidogo, lakini he should be on his way, so he should be joining us for a conversation again this morning as we're going to have a conversation together. Tusikie mjadala mambo vipi wapi. Kama pia una swali ama una mazungumzo unataka kuchangia, please you can contribute in. Weke pale kwenye comment section ama baadaye unaweza kupiga simu kwenye nambari wa 779-800-010 779-800-010. This is a tackle and it begins now. Wacha niwape salamu zenu hapa kidogo. Anameamka. Mungu alita continue. Anasema morning team tackle tuning in from Convent United Kingdom. Good to be part of this morning State of the Nation edition. What's all this nonsense about opening a political kiosk in Mount Kenya? The mountain has never sung in one political choir since the beginning of multi-party politics. Let history correct me. Salimia jamaa wa Matayos. Haya, asante sana. Mungu alita continue. Balozi Eric Meja anasema Seregea Likuyani Kakamega County already locked in Mr. wa mashati na makoti. Ala. Asante sana lakini haya. Bandikwa. Sasa mtu wa Matayos pia amekuwa mtu wa masuti. Tangu angukia jackpot bana tuweze pumua. Leo namulia anavaa suti kila siku kama na. Lakini tulimuuliza kwa nini tuvaliange suti. Anyway, Nancy Kwaech anasema Jared Bito, good morning to you Nancy, good to see you this morning, hope you're doing well. Naona Jared Kimeto mheshimiwa Tapsago Award amesema good morning GB. Na Rausha Jared Rono Cheptap Kibri Reds na Victor Komen. Asante sana ndugu yangu mheshimiwa Tapsago Award Jared Kimeto mwenyewe. Ala ulikuwa na kabumbu juzi na tualike bana, alikuwa na tournament kidogo pale. Walike huyu jamaa Matayos anachezanga football pale watu wa Tapsago. Mheshimiwa tafuta mtu wa Matayos Khalende akuja afunza vijana wako kabumbu. Haya, David Kamon anasema good morning team Tacklas. I wish everyone a blessed day. Asante sana David Kamon, good to see you. Rono Ian, good morning. Tackle, happy to see you guys. Happy to see you too Rono. Karoki Wamasi, good morning Gerald. I'm tuning from Kayole, waking up all Kayole and Nyeri residents and wishing them a good day. Say hello to Khalende. Asante sana. Jep Kirui Koech anasema good morning GB, watching from Nairobi. MC Kalia chairman menokisha kettle dim na kuona. Good morning just as to morning team Tackle tuned in. Message of condolence to the family of Senator Prengei and the people of Nakuru and Kenya for the sad news. Pole ni sana. Jared Kany Rooms anasema good morning, kazi ni kazi lakini asali ni korie mahani. Asante sana kwa asali uliniletea, nashukuru. Chantel Sharon Minayo anasema good morning Gerald Bitok, watching from Kayole. Asante sana Chantel, good to see you. Balozi Eric Meja anasema I love the show, I love the presenter Gerald Bitok, Seregea Likuyani Kakamega County already tuned in. Asante sana Balozi Eric Meja mwenyewe. Hilary Kimngetich watching live from Kitengela. Mohaz Aditicha, morning mzito, tuko ndani ya CBD cappuccino tu hapa ya Java Mama Ngina locked kabisa. Asante sana, salimia watu wa Java Mama Ngina, na hata mimi nitumia kahawa bana, even me is child of somebody. Haya, Franklin Koech anasema hapo sawa all the way from Marura. Asante. Suleiman Sule, salimia Ruth Ambogo sana. Haya, amesalimika. Hilary Koskien, I'm watching from Aldai Nandi, niko ndani kabisa. Asante sana tu Nandi. Balozi Eric Meja, as I'm away from our politics. What's happening in Afghanistan is reminiscent of all the Saigon, over the fall of Saigon in 1975, the US left Vietnam. Vietnam was a messy affair for the US. President Gerald Ford faced a crisis pretty much like what President Biden has faced over Afghanistan. Continued stay of the US in Vietnam was going to cost America more lives and money without a clear picture of what the end would be. And so President Ford had to make that difficult decision. The US has been in Afghanistan for 20 years now, at the monumental cost of thousands of lives of American servicemen, close to 3,000 and about 4,000 US contractors, plus a whopping 1 trillion, let me see here. Whopping $1 trillion. The US had two objectives going into Vietnam: stop Al-Qaeda by denying them a foothold and destroy the thousands of acres of poppy fields that produced heroin that funded the Taliban to a large extent, with America being the biggest market, ironically. It was dubbed war on terror. Obama already knew Afghanistan was a mistake. Trump already knew Afghanistan was a mistake. But the two didn't have the guts to make the decision of quitting. They knew there would be a political price to pay. They were not ready for that. No country, no matter how powerful, can successfully impose a puppet regime in Afghanistan unless that remain in Afghanistan forever. Putin knew this, and that's why he stood back and watched as Americans made fools of themselves. There's very logic why Biden has made the decision to pull out early in his presidency. It will give him time to deal with the political repercussions in good time. Haya, naona ujumbe ni ndefu kidogo analysis, lakini tayari chapata mambo kidogo. Jeffrey Rokosa watching from Tulip Science Limited South B. Asante sana. Joel Mwangi anasema morning Nyaruru ndani. Asante Vincent Parkuto, good morning. Gerald Kabarak tuned in Gotea, majama wote wa Chepterwai. Watu Chepterwai mnasalimiwa. Munga Junior, good morning from Meru. Masingete watching from Denderu Kiambu. Watu wa Denderu bariage. Kimutai Mark, good morning. Gerald watching from Voi, we love the show. Asante sana to Voi, really appreciate you. Felix Kipkosge, good morning GB. Niko ndani from EMC. Kipkorir Ben, morning GB. Kazi ni kazi. And so with the family of Prengei, that's La Nation Fraternity. Poleni sana. Asan, I'm logged in from Nyamira County. Manuela, good morning, watching you from Nairobi. It's a sad Tuesday for the loss of Victor Prengei. RIP Mheshimiwa. Poleni sana. Jane Mumbi, good morning. Nimeona Maridadi Academy huko barabarani, representing very well. Asante sana Jane Mumbi. Haya, naona watu wameamka wameingia kazi tayari. Hata wewe na kutembelea leo. Honorable Dirango Favor, good morning Gerald and the team up at the Goreti. We are watching you loud and clear, and may God expand your territories, bro. Good example, blessed day. Amen and amen. Asante sana Dirango. Asante kwa hiyo maombi. Martin Ngoni, good to see you sir. Morning Gerald, niko locked in, but nataka hizo sides leo kawa utapata. Haya, niko tayari. Niko na tumbo, sikuacha nyumbani. Kawa niko tayari kukunywa. Paul Kibiego, good morning. Bito condolences to family and friends of Senator Prengei. Poleni sana. Tutaanza na hapo. Poleni sana kwa familia ya Paul Prengei. Poleni sana. Really hope that God is going to comfort you. Na neema yake itaweza kuwatosha. Na pia ndugu yetu Mheshimiwa Prengei aweze kusafiri salama. Tutaonana lini? Tutaonana baadaye. Salima wale ambao wametutangulia. Nasema leo wewe, kesho mimi. Karibu Ruth.
Asante sana. I think it was quite some breaking news. In the recent past, what we have seen happening is that we've lost a lot of leaders, especially during this COVID period of time. But that was quite an unfortunate loss, especially for the Ogiek community. For those who don't know Senator Prengei, he was the first, member of parliament from the Ogiek community. And I think that is one of the, contributions of the new constitution that we must appreciate. The fact that when the new constitution came up with the provisions that, there should be non-discrimination clauses to protect the marginalized communities, clauses that were to ensure that we had representation for the marginalized communities within parliament. And that is what, led to the nomination of the likes of Prengei. Unfortunately, he was not I would not say that he contributed much during his time as a nominated senator. Most people got to know about him during the revenue allocation debate last year, when there was a lot of fracas and some senators being arrested. I think that's the time when his name came up in the public limelight, but we did not hear much from him in terms of contribution. And I think earlier on, before the show started, we were having a bit of this conversation that, when you're given a position of power, I'm not castigating him in any way, but I'm now just trying to review him as a senator and, what contribution did he make. There's very little to say. There's very little to speak for. There's very little to talk about in terms of his contribution. And maybe it could be because, I'm not a member of parliament and I'm not privy to some of his works, but I would want to say from a public point of view, we really did not see much of him. So it's also a challenge to the rest of, the members of parliament who are in Bunge. You never really know when your time will come. So when you're given a position of leadership, a position of influence, a position of power, a position of a key decision-making position, just do your best with it. Make the most out of it, because they say none of us knows the time, nor the hour, nor the second, nor the minute when siku yako ikifika ujuangi. So for the time that you are around, make the most out of the opportunities that you have in life. But we condole with the people of the Ogiek community. We condole with the family and friends of the senator, and we wait to see who takes over the position and what they get to do with it.
All right. Yeah. Kiplimo Kiambai, kazi ni kazi, following from Thika Road. Asante Boniface Kimani, morning Bitok, watching from Kithurai. Frederick Juma, good morning Bitok, and the panelists, good to see you in. I'm running for the second day. Asante sana ndugu yangu, tuned in from the office as usual, Adi Tamati. Asante sana ndugu yangu, Frederick Juma, good to see you. Khalende, good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, good to see you.
On the same
the Duke of Matthias.
On the same note, I want to pass my condolence to the family, the Ogiek, the larger community of Nakuru, and also to the UDF fraternity. But in the same breath, I would like us to discuss an issue that it looks like it's a pattern. That we are losing very many of our leaders through road accident. And a simple question that we need to ask actually is within this week that the matter to do with the governor of Nyeri was being discussed. Then again also it's unfortunate that we are losing also a senator through the road accident. And maybe it's because of carelessness, or it's because of the speed that some of these leaders and the drivers, and actually something needs to be done through the Parliamentary Service Commission and look into some of these issues, that why are we losing our leaders through the road accident? Then again also, why are we losing young people in this country in unexplained and unexplained circumstances that you cannot be able to detail some of these things. You know about the Embo brothers, the incident in Kitengela, now this accident. So it's something that as a nation we need, as we are condoning with the family, we should also interrogate further and have a conversation around some of these issues so that we can help the society going forward. And also in the same breath, the way my sister has highlighted that Senator Prengei was in Parliament courtesy of Article 56, representing the minority. And also in Parliament, currently there's an amendment to amend the laws to do denomination. So it's a good opportunity. We can also converse around those issues where some people think that denomination rules need to be changed, and people need nomination lists to be submitted after election. So those are some of the conversation as a country we need to have and be able to interrogate those issues.
Okay. And I've always had a concern with it as well, with the way this VIP is handled on the road. And it leaves a lot to be desired. And I have one crook who is always on Ngong Road, going in the opposite direction. And I keep wondering if something happens to this person. You saw what happened on Langata Road to the former head of police, Kingori Mwangi. And it's quite unfortunate that I don't know where the hurry and the entitlement is usually. If you want to get to a place at 7 a.m., why can't you leave yours at 5? You know, at what time? And because also, I think they happen in a very terrible way. We talk,
even as we are addressing that issue, I think we also need to look forward towards the 2022 elections. A lot of times you've heard of cases, especially during the campaign period, where, you know, it has been alleged that members of parliament, rather aspirants, political aspirants, vehicles have hit children during campaigns, in the rush to try and get from point A to point B, in a bid to try and avoid the crowds, So I think it's a safety issue that we need to discuss, because again, 2022 is here.
Yeah.
The campaign season is here. We'll hear of a lot of cases of people being run down by vehicles that are owned by politicians. I remember back in 2017, I was active in one of the aspirants campaigns for one of the big seats in Nairobi County, and a lot of times when we would be in the same vehicle with the aspirant, I would pray over my life, because I was like, I don't think I would want to lose my life this soon. So it's a question that needs to be addressed. It's an issue that needs to be taken very seriously. We almost lost Tuju, you remember, during one of those when they were, I think they were attending a political meeting, and he got into a road accident that almost cost him his life. So moving forward, it's a question that needs to be addressed and taken very seriously. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's very important, as well as we're talking about road safety. We must and I think the law is very clear. ONU can clear the way. It's very clear. ONU, an ambulance, police, na nani mwingine rais na naibu wake. I think inaishia hapo.
Actually, the case is that nobody is above the law. Everybody needs to respect the law, but the level of impunity among our politicians is wanting to an extent that they are able to risk their life chasing after I don't know what. Because how do you overspeed at night? And you know the way that highway is, you know the way most of our roads are, and at the same time, how do you also use an opposite lane in Nairobi where everybody is on the road? So you start asking some of these questions and you interrogate it further, you realize it's just the level of impunity and entitlement among our politicians that we need to address.
Aya, to Afghanistan. The situation in Afghanistan is a serious humanity crisis. I think since I was born, I'm yet to see anything like that. You're seeing people, but the shocking thing is, all the people are running. I don't see women or men are running, getting into planes. Where are women? Where are children? But anyway, the thing is, the situation there is really, it's sad. And I've seen even people falling off planes. Yeah. And why? The question is, why as a world we're just watching it? And we just, we're fine, we're discussing it. Nobody is moving into act for the people of Afghanistan. What are your thoughts?
First of all, on the question of women and children, I think I saw something circulating yesterday on the question of women and children. I saw something circulating yesterday that seemed to, I'm just trying to access it, that seemed to suggest that what are they called? The new regime has come up with rules that are regulating, or rules that regulate how women should conduct themselves during this particular period. And as I was reading it, I was asking myself, are we back to the 1800s? Are we back to the 1700s, just before civilization, when women were considered as property and not human beings? Because I think what the rules seemed to have, I don't know how true this is, but they were talking about how women should not be seen outside with if they're not in the company of men, how their cosmetics are forbidden, jewelry is forbidden, that they should not make eye contact with men, that they should not paint their nails, they should not attend school, and all schools will be closed immediately. Girls should not attend schools. Women are forbidden from working, and that if you're found guilty of adultery, you will be stoned to death. And I don't know how true this was, but to me it painted a very grim picture, and maybe that is why we were not seeing, in the crowds of people that were running to try to scamper for safety, we were not seeing women and children in that instance. In such a situation, of course, that the risk is very high. The risk of losing your life is very high. Regarding the situation, I think yesterday President of America issued a statement and pretty much tried to put perspective into the situation back in Afghanistan, and said that when the United States went into Afghanistan back in I think
it's 20 years ago, 2011,
about 20 years ago, this was after the attack on American soil, the terrorist attack on American soil that claimed a lot of lives. And America was, moving into Afghanistan just to try and protect, the interest of America, to try and protect the lives and livelihoods of Americans. And Joe Biden, pretty much, the bottom line of his statement was that it was not the business of America to meddle in the nation-building affairs of Afghanistan. And that, it is not the responsibility of the country to ensure that Afghanistan is stable. And he was pretty much trying to say that America had already secured their interests. They had, eliminated the threat, and it was time for them to get out of Afghanistan. And he alluded to the number of, the lives that they had lost in terms of the American soldiers who have died in war in Afghanistan, and that it was time to withdraw. However, when we look at it, at the end of the day, what usually happens in international law is that most countries tend to look out for themselves. You look out for your own interests. You look out for your interests, and I think in a lot of situations, America is usually given the responsibility of taking over, taking care of other countries when they too have their own interests to take care of. For instance, I would equate to the situation in America to, the terrorist, the war against terrorism that Kenya was fighting in Somalia. That if it gets to the point where Kenya feels that, we have secured our interests as a country, we no longer have the threat of terrorism to our country from Somalia, and now it's time to withdraw our troops from Somalia, and Kenya decides to withdraw its troops from Somalia, and suddenly Somalia, collapses as a country, and there's war, and there's a caliphate taking over the country. Is it the duty of Kenya to secure, Somalia's interests? Is it the duty of Kenya to ensure that Somalia is stable as a country? Or is it Kenya's interests to ensure that, that we as a country are stable? What interests come first? Is it our own interest as a country, or the interest of our neighboring country, or the interest of Somalia? So international law is a very tricky ground to so to speak. So when we blame the United States for what is happening in Afghanistan, it's almost as if we are taking a double standard. If the situation was to be reversed, and Kenya was on the spotlight, and just in the example I have given, most of us would say, Kenya needs to stand up for itself and protect its interests first. So it's a very tricky situation, but we do empathize with what is happening there, especially for the innocent, children, women, the people who are unable to protect themselves, the people who are unable to scamper for, safety and find a way out of the situation. We empathize with them.
Okay. Khalende.
From the historical perspective, the issue to do with Afghan, actually, America was going to lose. Because you look at Afghanistan from history, you are told that Afghanistan were the first people to defeat the great British Empire. That was in 1918, after the First World War. Then you come to the Soviet war. The Afghanistan were able to defeat the Soviets. Then this American war from 2001 up to today, the Americans have lost. But the issue here within Afghanistan is about that before even the Soviet went into Afghanistan, Afghanistan itself was under civil war. So there were these the caliphate, these people who wanted to establish the Mujahideen, who wanted to establish the Sharia law. So that thing was within Afghanistan themselves. But now, what do we learn from it? Specifically Kenya as a country and our foreign policy. We need to learn from US war in Iraq and US war in Afghanistan. Some of these countries thrive in chaos. Even if you try to establish a strong democratic government, these countries will, and these people and these societies will not accept. They believe that within themselves and their Sharia law and their local issues can be sorted out by themselves. So Kenya needs to look at its foreign policy, and specifically with Somalia, and be able to realize that we can protect our borders and our interest in Somalia without interfering with the local politics and the local issues within a foreign country. Because truth be told, the moment Kenya helps to establish a government in Somalia, the Somalia people will not look at that government as a strong, independent or democratic government. They will look at it as a puppet of Kenya. Definitely they will fight it. And the statistics from Afghanistan, we are being told that the US helped the Afghanistan government to set up a 320,000 military force with latest equipment. But the Taliban were 80,000 and they managed to outrun the government. So it will be, at the end of the day, it will be an ideological war and you cannot win that war. So we need to learn from that war. Going forward, as a country also, we are going into an election period. We need to be able to understand that some of the issues that we are having or we are facing today and the election issues can be sorted out best by ourselves. We should not expect someone somewhere from outside to come and help us sort our issue. Because at the end of the day, if your neighbor will come to sort your issues, he will come with an interest. He will not just come to help you. It will not be at your best interest. It will be at his best interest. And that in the same line goes with the elections in Zambia. We have seen how they have managed to do the election. The president who has been defeated in the election has promised he's going to do a peaceful transfer. And that is the same what we are asking here in Kenya, that our president Uhuru Kenyatta needs to affirm and needs to confirm to Kenyans that there will be a peaceful transfer of power and there will be no attempt to extend his term in government.
Okay, all right. But also, who do we blame for the crisis in Afghanistan then, and how do we reverse it?
We are going in Afghanistan. From history, we will blame the Western allies who are trying to sort out some of the issues within that society and not understanding the history and the mechanism within that community.
Okay, all right. Who do you blame, Ruth?
I would want to associate with his views, that sometimes you cannot rely on foreign influence to try and resolve issues that are deeply rooted in culture, in tradition, in history that a foreigner would less likely understand, So I align myself with his sentiments,
Okay, all right. Sawa, nimeona Askami unasema the negative the negative comments by Ruth on Prankei was unnecessary. You didn't really have to go after the legislator when we saw him fight for the marginalized groups in the revenue sharing bill, which will cost him heavily. The man was young and a first time legislator. Come on, okay. Sawa. Munga Lito anasema I have a new opinion that the Taliban, the Afghanistan army and police, the Afghanistan president were all playing on the same team. The only death to occur were those three guys who plummeted to the ground from hanging on the evacuating plane, with over 3,000 interpreters and liaison staff working for the U.S. embassy and staff. The Western allies have many people secure. On one hand, Joe Biden and Trump before him are right. Their mandate in Afghanistan was over and unnecessary to proceed. On the other hand, the Taliban signed to a peace accord with the Trump government, which they have honored. They have not resorted to wanton bloodshed, but they are smart. They decided to wait until the Americans started abandoning their bases, hoping the Afghanistan government would secure them, only for the Taliban to quietly swoop in and take guns, vehicles, and military resources. Okay, that's an interesting perspective as well. Gilly Kip says, come on, tell Ruth America will not go anywhere. They don't see anything interesting. We benefit them. They are getting out because nothing is there anymore, like oil, etc. Okay, Abbas Njuguna says America's interest is a people. Did you see how they were evacuating a few of their staff at the embassy? But our soldiers were ambushed and killed in Somalia in hundreds, and today we are still deeply rooted there. Maajabu. Haemba Wandabuza za morning talk last tuned in from as usual. Asante Kathleen Kate. Ibito, good morning. We do work here in Middle East with American contractors. The issue in Afghanistan has everything to do with Iran. Those who are seen running for safety are the Afghans working with the Americans. So they fear for their lives because the Taliban know them. Okay, interesting. Okay. Jana nasema jana kibado kiongozi niko ndani. Asante sana Jules Favor, good morning brother. Good to see you. Now that's a very interesting perspective on Afghanistan.
You see, Afghanistan is a community majorly with the actually the real history here. It's between Iran and Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
Iran and Saudi Arabia are fighting in Iraq because of one side is majorly dominated by the Shias, the other one is dominated by the Sunnis. So the Islamic fundamentalists who wants to establish the Sharia law are from Saudi Arabia. So that's why they fight within themselves. And this war started as early as 1973, the civil war between the Shia and the Sunnis within Afghanistan. But now these other wars, the Soviet and the American war, came later and they paused that war. Now, after the Americans have left, now they have gone back to their civil war. But the people who are now suffering now are the collaborators and sympathizers of Western allies. Because according to those people, according to Taliban, you do not have to you don't have to to forgive such kind of people who betrayed you people.
Lazima utawanyonga. Hi. Odede, we're in Afghanistan briefly before you came in. Karibu kwanza.
Thank you.
Awacha kulala sana.
Sijalala, Gerard.
We'll return you to your village.
Just landed.
I've seen trouble in the morning, but it's okay. That's what
You
we
saw
live.
trouble saw you.
That's what we live to see. Yeah, thank you. It's
See
really
a gun.
regrettable what is happening in Afghanistan. But on the other flip side, I think there are also communities. I don't know what would happen in a situation like that in African countries, for example, because those people live by the gun and they live by the bombs and all the explosives. So we might be regretting more than they are, because to some part of this world, those bombs are day-to-day things. Children are born, they grow, they see those bombs every day. They hear the gun sounds every minute. So I think for us, it is really painful because I don't know, Gerard, the last time you had a gunshot. I mean, Sauti ya bunduki, it could have been some time. But some people hear that every day.
Kwa movie.
Yeah, actually, kwa movie. But some people, so maybe that is why for us, it feels really, really a big deal. But for them, it might not even be such a big thing. Although globally, we all know death is death. And I listened to the president of the US yesterday. There was a statement that captured my attention, that America was not going to fight a war that Afghanistans are not ready to fight. I mean, that to me was a bit deep. There must be something they know that probably we don't know. Or there is something they are trying to cover completely with that kind of a statement. Maybe their hand is somewhere, because America has always played the big brother. And if you decide to play a big brother, Gerard, it means you are also, behind every privilege, there is a responsibility. So you are also responsible for the peace that should be in the world, because you have elevated yourself to a level where you play the monitor, you play the prefect to the whole world. So when there is no peace, people also look at you, that what are you doing to bring back the peace? And maybe I think that is the background where the president of the US was trying to tell the world that probably they have done what they wanted to do or they needed to do, but the country, the Afghanistans themselves were not helping them. And so things have gotten out of hand. Maybe it's a way of telling the world, we are not here, we are not to be blamed. I mean, blame the Afghanistans themselves. Yeah.
Anyway, let's move to Zambia. The most interesting is elections in Africa. The Electoral Commission has stood its ground, and at some point the president himself was saying the election is not free and fair. I don't know if that could happen in this country, where
it happened in Kiamba.
Abbas Muguna anasema Kenyans hear gun sounds in police barriers. Okay, but now anyway, interesting. What has happened in Zambia? It's quite interesting, because if it was, for instance, in a country where especially in a country like Kenya, where you're bashing the Electoral Commission every time. In fact, it has started again. They're saying Chebukati must go. Yeah. But now look at the elections in Zambia. The Electoral Commission has stood its ground. And they say this is a process, and everyone has to accept the process the way it has been. We have a new president-elect and peaceful handover of power, even after the president complained and whined that the elections were not free. A president, except the elections are not free and fair. With the biggest margin, I think a margin over 50% on the guy who was winning the elections. I don't know what observations and what lessons we pick from Zambia. I'll start with you again, Ruth.
I think first and foremost, we need to appreciate the fact that African democracies, much as we share, some similarities, we are quite different in terms of, individual countries. So when you hear people talking about how it is almost unheard of for a president to complain about elections being, not being free and fair, and the situation being compared to Kenya, there's very little to compare. Because we are very different countries, in a democracy where an election for the presidential elections that the president gets to win by about 1.8 million votes only, you cannot compare that to an election where, the president, for one to be declared a president, they are winning by a margin of about, or rather by votes of about, 3 to 4 million voters, in a democracy where you have 5-6 million registered voters who are voting in an election, and in another where there are 1.8, 2 million, 3 million, 2 million, so to say, voters. The dynamics are a bit different here. In such an election, for instance, now the one that has just taken place in Zambia, one would want to say that the Electoral Commission of that country would probably have an easier job in terms of managing the elections. The numbers are not too high as compared to Kenya. But what is interesting to note is how quickly the president realized that indeed he had lost, and quickly, came to his senses, and immediately after that went to visit the president-elect, had a conversation about, how the country should move forward, and, the country should go back to nation building, and the new president should take over. I think it is tradition. It is a show of sportsmanship that we hope to see in our coming elections. And one thing that I think Kenyans also need to appreciate is that by the time a candidate for the presidential elections is complaining about or commenting about the legitimacy and the preparedness of an electoral commission, such are issues that should be taken very seriously, By the time I'm coming up and saying that I don't have faith in the IEBC of this country to conduct free and fair elections, that should be taken very seriously. There must be something that I have noted that puts me in a position where I do not feel comfortable going to an election with that kind of IEBC, and we know that elections are rigged. The elections have been rigged in the past in this country. We just cannot verify and finally come and say that indeed this election was rigged, but we know that elections have been rigged in the past in Kenya. So I think when we see people coming up and making such comments and expressing that they do not have confidence in IEBC conducting a free and fair elections, those are sentiments that should be taken very seriously, and these are sentiments that the people making them should be sat down and asked to elaborate and give details as to why they feel this commission is not competent enough to proceed with the elections. Do not forget that in the very same, like now in Kenya, I'm not siding with ODM or Raila Odinga in any way, but I think they're just making valid sentiments. For instance, they're coming from a background whereby the same IEBC that held that conducted an election that was disputed by the Supreme Court of Kenya is the very same IEBC, or rather the leadership of the same IEBC that we are taking into the coming elections. One literally has to have, you have to have jitters when in such a situation, It's almost as if the system, you'd have the fears that the system might not be tilted, towards you, or it might not be in favor of you winning in that case. So I think there's a lot to learn from Zambia. In summary, there's a lot to learn from Zambia, but there's also, we need to appreciate that we are two different democracies, one that is fairly I'd say fairly young in terms of numbers, in terms of the I wouldn't call it young per se, but that is fairly manageable when it comes to an election in terms of numbers, versus another that, the numbers are continuously grow as we keep going to each and every other election, and the dynamics are a bit different, but we also must commend them for the sportsmanship. We must commend, the kind of display they have shown us, and hopefully that in the coming elections that we have, we're going to have as a country, we shall get to the point where whoever loses easily concedes and says, let the country move forward.
All right. But now it's indeed interesting that now we don't want to compare ourselves with Zambia because we believe it's a young democracy. But when you ask why you don't run elections like America, we say America is an old democracy. I know the younger the democracy, the difficult the process. Anyway, Khalende, your comments on Zambia. The president is saying the elections are not free and fair. When the gaps are opening, what do we learn? What can Africa learn from Zambia?
Even here in Kenya, the government complained, actually the Jubilee government complained that Juja elections were not free and fair, Kiamba elections were not free and fair. So it's the new trend. Yeah, actually the state. And if you can project it, I'm seeing in 2022 even the same government will complain that the elections were not free and fair. But what do we learn? We need to learn something from the Zambia election. One, elections is not a matter of life and death. And that's what the President Lungu has demonstrated, that if you are to serve the people, you should not fight over certain things. It's a calling. And when you are given that mandate, you should allow, when another person has been given that mandate by the people, you shall allow that person to serve. You should not force yourself onto people. The second thing is that we need to respect our institutions. We can disagree, but we must respect the sanctity and the independence of those institutions. President Lungu has demonstrated that. Being the president of Zambia, he has accepted the results that his electoral commission has given, and that must cut across in this country. Whether you are in opposition or you are in government, you must respect the independence and the institutions, the democratic institutions that we have in this country. Because what we normally say in this country, if tomorrow judiciary rules against the government comes out with these nice reports that, the judge is corrupt, the judge was bribed, the judge that somebody promised to make a road to his village house, so that's why he ruled in his favor. No, we can disagree with the ruling from the institution, but we must respect the institution, and we must respect the people who are serving in that institution. Our history is very simple. Look at the elections in 1992, look at the election in 97, look at the elections in 2002, look at the elections in 2013, look at the elections in 2017. You will find a common denominator of certain individuals blaming the people who are serving in those respective institutions. But if we respect that decision and respect the institution, we will save ourselves. Then also another thing that we need to address regarding the Zambian election. We have seen a handshake between the president-elect, Double H, and President Lungu. But that handshake is about the results and allowing the next president to come and serve. It does not mean that President Lungu now should force himself into the government of the president-elect, that he needs to be a prime minister or he needs to be, that one apana. We need to be mature, that if somebody else has been given a responsibility, you go and serve people in the responsibility that you have been endowed with. That is in opposition, because in any democracy there must be checks and balances. Who offers checks and balances? Opposition. And opposition is always said that opposition is the alternative government. And I'm telling people, if the current opposition in this country could have stuck to their guns, they will be the alternative government in 2022. But since for them it was their time to join the government and eat, now they are in quagmire. They are moving all over in seminars trying to look for a presidential candidate within themselves, because they confused themselves. And to finish, my sister has raised some critical issue, but now the election issues that were raised in 2017 led to the handshake. Handshake led to BBI. this BBI tumezungushwa nayo, it did not address those elections issues that were raised in 2017. Now we are 1 year into an election. The same people who raised the issues in 2017 and were given a platform and opportunity to address those issues are now starting to complain and are pointing fingers to Chebukati's IEBC commission. It's 1 year. Let's give IEBC ample time. Let's give them all the goodwill that they deserve. Let's give them all the resources that they deserve so that they can conduct a free, fair, accurate and verifiable election come 2022 so that when you are defeated unasema tu jamali ni shinda ya ukweli.
Unakubali matokeo. Meshack Odede. What do you learn from Zambia? I know you're about to tell us Chebukati must go. And now before you go there, what do we learn from Zambia?
You know,
African democracy.
Joe has said so many things, which I don't even know where to begin. And all of them sounds like those rallies in churches. I mean, there is no difference, but that is allowed. In Zambia, I think people are very fast to appreciate or congratulate Lungu. But I think he was stuck. I mean, what was he going to do?
Anyway.
What was he going to do? Even if he wanted to do something. You know, there is this thing. If the electoral body has announced someone, they are ready to go all the way. Even in court, they are going to defend whoever they have announced. So Lungu had nothing else he could do. If it was possible that the electoral body had not announced anyone, Lungu was sticking to his gun, and actually he did. He was there complaining, and he was there wanting to go all the way until the body now declared this other guy is the winner. So somehow he just realized that looking at the history in Africa, the history of Ouattara and colleague, it happened this way. When Ouattara was announced and the other guy refused, he ended up very badly. People end up very badly when they are in power and the opposition or the opposite side has been announced. So I think he just got some little counsel from his team and said, this is, now that they have announced your opposite side, there is nothing you can do. Because once the electoral body has announced, for example, Ruth here as the winner, and I am the sitting president, and I am refusing. Now it opens all gates for international community to come, even to use force. Yeah, that is where the big brother comes in. The big brother will not come in if the electoral body in that country has announced me, even if I was incumbent. They will not come in. They will say they are going by what the electoral body has announced. So in a situation where electoral body has announced X and Y is trying to stake in power, they are now allowed to come in, or whichever way, even by force. So Lungu had very little he could do, especially after the announcement had been made that the opposition has won the elections. Number two, there is also perception across the globe. When you are an incumbent, people tend to imagine that you should be defeated. And anytime you win, it is not democracy.
You rigged.
Yeah, you rigged. I mean, tell me where the incumbent wins and the opposition anywhere globally says that was free, fair, and credible. I mean, it's difficult. You can count 10 and you may find only one place. So it is a perception all over that when the incumbent wins, it is rigged. When the opposition wins, democracy is prevailing. And then that is the same perception that goes far, and people imagine that the incumbent is the one conducting election. So he is not supposed to complain if election is not free or fair. who told us that they are not human beings? And on the other hand, like Joe here is saying, even here, the government was complaining. That tells you that what he is not telling you is the government was the one conducting that election, not the independent commission, which he claims to be independent. So if you know the commission IEBC is independent, then every party is allowed to complain if they are not feeling it is fair, because it is independent from government, it is independent from opposition. So if you want Juja and the president and his team are saying it was not free and fair, remember the IEBC is independent. It is not the president that was conducting that election. So this perception, the narrative we are painting out there in campaigns, in churches and everywhere, that government cannot complain. Government are allowed to complain because the electoral body is independent.
And that's what I was saying. Like, I mean, it is.
The electoral body is not independent.
My point,
your mind, and you're lying to
my
people.
My point is the independence of that institution.
Yes.
That is actually my main point, in the sense that political competitors cannot have an influence on an electoral body.
Yes.
In other democracies, we always complain about an influence. Sijio server, sijio Nyongeza plus G50 percentage and all those things.
Yeah.
But you're speaking about an electoral body that is so tight and firm that even those people that have the powers and the system that we usually talk about, the deep state that we talk about here, will not have power to interfere with the process of elections.
It is
that is what actually, that's my emphasis.
Gerard, let me be candid with you. It is not very possible that one day there will be these guys from God knows which planet, and they are so independent and cannot be influenced. These people will always be influenced. That's the truth. Even in America of 200 and over democracy, the UK who colonized the America, there are still level of influence that comes with all these things. And we cannot run away and say that one day it will go. The level of influence can go down, but they will be influenced somewhere. Trust me on this. We cannot close our eyes and say, there is a country in this earth where there is no influence. Gerard, I am now here. You think I don't have interest in what is going on in government? So tomorrow, if I become an IEBC official, you think I am so independent? I mean, I am not so independent. I am independent to a certain level. But there is no way that I'm going to lie to people that now if I came from church, it means I'm independent. No. I still live in Kenya and I still see the things that are happening, and some of them are actually touching my heart, and I feel like something needs to be done. In that perspective alone, even if I mean well, the opposite side will see me as somebody who is not very independent. So I believe let's just reduce the level of influence to a level where everybody can accept, but it will be influenced.
How about the change influence? Anyway.
You know, Meshack should never submit his name to become an IBC commissioner. The day he does, we will archive this conversation.
That will be the end of the elections in Kenya.
This conversation from the archives.
He'll be bringing certificates to your house in the morning. Alright, tuende Masakwani tulipe bills. Alafu tukirudi tuingie Kenya sasa. Mambo ya IEBC. They are back again. Saying Chebukati must go. But anyway, wacha tulipe madeni. Tunatafuta pesa. Alafu tukirudi naangalia. Are you going to pay me?
Just 1 minute before you jump out of this. To be honest, Joe here should tell me. If Chebukati conducted the election.
No. Forget about Chebukati first. We are coming to Chebukati. We are still in Zambia. Ujavuka Lilongwe. Ujafika Lilongwe.
But you let Joe come back to Chebukati. And everybody who does not accept.
Okay. Now he will not contribute to Chebukati. Like, he has already given his opinion on Chebukati, then we might not have to give him another time.
Okay.
All right, Maridadi Motors gives you an opportunity to import. When you import in Maridadi Motors directly, directly with Maridadi Motors, you get to save up to 300,000 Kenyan shillings. When you import directly with Maridadi Motors, unaweza kusave hadi shilingi 300,000 na unaweza kuhakikisha kwamba pesa yako inakuwa safi zaidi. Maridadi Motors gives you an opportunity to import your vehicle direct import, and you get to save up to 300,000 Kenyan shillings. Pia pale kwenye showroom unaweza enda upate stock yao pale. Alafu pia Maridadi Motors inakupa nafasi ya kuweza kuwekeza hela zako. Kama kuna pesa ambazo zimekaa mahali, you can import in the import to sell model by Maridadi Motors. What happens is this: you give them money. They import the vehicle of your choice under your name, and they sell it on your behalf, and you get 1 up to 15% on your investment. So kama uko na hela ambazo zimelala mahali akiba, unaweza kapale kwa Miradi Motors import to sell model where you get 1 up to 15% on your investment. Gari inaleta kwa jina yako, alafu pia inaweza kuuzwa kwa niaba yako na kuweza kupata 15% kwenye faida. Miradi Motors Sacco pia gives you an opportunity to save. You can save money and Miradi Motors Sacco, and when you want if you want a vehicle worth 2 million, mtu kama Odede maybe 5 million, you can save 2.5 million in the Sacco, and they get to import the car for you, and you pay the rest as you drive. You pay the rest you can never get such a deal anywhere else. As Miradi Motors Sacco gives you an opportunity to save your money, and you get an asset when you're ready. When you want to access an asset, you can be able to get it. Mama Miradi Motors pia Sparkling Motor Spa pale Siata Mall. Sparkling Motor Spa by Miradi Motors na kupana nafasi ya kuweza kungarisha gari yako pia safi zaidi Siata Mall pale nyuma. Ukienda pale utisha discount, napewa discount ya 10% kwa jina yangu. Enda pale useme mtumwa na mimi unapigwa discount haraka upesi. As Miradi Motors import to sell model, also direct imports by Miradi Motors where you get to save 300,000 Kenya shillings, and Miradi Motors Sacco where you get to save and also get to acquire an asset at 50% savings. Pia tuende pale kwenye Rexa Roofing. Kama unajenga, if you are building, there's no way you can build. A roof is a legacy. You don't get to do your roof several times. You do it once. So if you're doing your roof and you're building, make sure that you get the right products for your roof. And Rexa Roofing gives you those beautiful products, these quality roofing shingles. If you're going to use shingles, a long quality guarantee of 50 years. 50 years, unaweza kupewa guarantee ya kwamba shingles zako zitakuwa pale kwenye roof. Na pia if you want to use stone-coated tiles, beautiful stone-coated tiles by Rexa Roofing. Na pia if you're doing a flat roof, you're able to do your waterproofing through waterproofing membranes or waterproofing liquid. Alafu pia kama unataka kuharvest maji yako ya kuweza kutumia, you can use water harvesting gutters all the way from Rexa Roofing. Rexa Roofing roofs your world. You can call them on the number on the screen, 0704-646-664, 0704-646-664. Ama unaweza enda kwenye www.rexaroofing.com, www.rexaroofing.com. Pia bajamangu airtime pale, Swift Airtime, unaweza kuweka airtime enda pale kwenye pay bill, weka business number 325325, account number, nambari yako ya simu, unaweza kupata hadi 5% kwenye savings ama discount ukiweza kununua airtime kupitia hao. Kama kuna mzigo unataka kutuma, Zigo inakupa nafasi ya kuweza kutuma mzigo wako kwa njia shwari zaidi. Just a call away and your package is delivered. Hiyo ni mambo ya masokoni. If you want to advertise as well with us, you can always drop us a message or call us on 0779-800-010 or 779-800-010. Lakini tumia ujumbe, tumia nambari yako, alafu basi tunaweza kupa rate zako. Haya, turudi Kenya. Ambogo.
Yes.
Chebukati must go. We said Hassan must go. Who else was there? Kivuitu must go. We said everyone must go. Now it's Chebukati's turn on the shredder.
I think
kwanza kidogo nimeona kuna mungwana hapa na mara yake ya kwanza ya coach takola anaitwa Mariansi Kipiegon. Mariansi Kipiegon, karibu sana. It's your first time on the tackle. Wacha upewe makofi. Sijui kama jamaa unajua mahali makofi iko, lakini Douglas saidia na makofi ya huyu. Haya. Karibu sana Mariansi Kipiegon, karibu kwenye tackle. It's your first time on the tackle. Make sure you take your seat and you don't move. Every single morning get to join us from 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. as we get to have various discussions that touches you as a citizen and also touches your country. This is the only show that's give you an opportunity to contribute to nation building, and si kama wengine, sisi tuko katikati. Haya, Ambogo.
Hii maneno ya Chebukati, I think it's as I would want to agree with part of, some of the sentiments, just part of them that he has mentioned. In the recent quest to have new commissioners at the IEBC, there was a lot of talk, I don't know whether some of you access these kinds of conversations, but I one time had a conversation with someone who was telling me, who was giving me a list of names of the people that they were sure would be, whose names would be submitted as, the commissioners, as some of the commissioners that would be appointed by the president. And what this friend of mine was telling me was, he would mention a name and tell me who was backing that person. Yeah. For instance, he would tell me, so you see so-and-so, this so-and-so is being backed by this particular candidate for the presidential elections. So-and-so is being backed by the state. So-and-so is being backed by William Ruto. So-and-so is being backed by Musalia Mudavadi. And this just goes to show, basically what Meshack was talking about, that indeed there is some level of influence, where by the time you're going to elections, you have already you've already categorized the commissioners and who is for who, which commissioner is for which presidential candidate. At that particular point, I think in time is where people now sit down and ask themselves, are the numbers for me or against me? And we need to also appreciate that, a lot of opinion polls have been done in the past that indicate a dwindling confidence of Kenyans in general in the IEBC as a commission, in the capability of the IEBC to conduct free and fair elections. In those opinion polls, it was not mentioned that this, the opinion polls were not restricted to persons supporting Raila Odinga, for instance. They weren't restricted to, let me say, opposition-leaning Kenyans, They were general opinion polls that were conducted amongst Kenyans, and Kenyans were asked, do you have confidence in the IEBC to conduct free and fair elections? And the numbers were very worrying. The percentages of the Kenyans who had confidence in the IEBC was actually very worrying, And there is reason for that. And I think part of the biggest concerns for Kenyans was the whole issue of, the new technological considerations that were being taken into play, that we would now have to use new technology, and this was back in 2017, that we would now have to use new technology to relay the results, and we all know what happens with manipulation of systems in this country. So it's very legitimate when you hear Kenyans complain and say that indeed they do not have confidence in the leadership of the IEBC to conduct free and fair elections. A lot of times, and this goes particularly to comment about the leadership of the IEBC itself. When people say we lack confidence in the IEBC, we are not saying that we lack confidence in IEBC, or they are not saying that they lack confidence in IEBC as an institution itself, but they lack confidence in the leadership of that institution. Who is at the helm of that leadership? At the helm of the leadership of IEBC is an individual who in the past has contradicted himself in the statements that he has made about, even his own confidence in terms of the preparedness of IEBC to conduct free, fair and credible elections. So such need to be taken into consideration. So I think these are people who are coming from, when you hear people complaining, they're coming from, there's a point of, there's history involved, there's a lot of considerations that have been taken into place. There's the character of the person at the helm of leadership, and such are questions that need to be taken into account. And in my view, I think we might be safer conducting elections with a new leadership every other electoral cycle, so that nobody has reason to start complaining. Yes, nobody has reason to start complaining and complaining about the credibility of the leadership or of the institution to conduct free and fair elections. And sometimes in certain situations, sensitive situations such as elections, when you have persons who are too used to the system, it becomes a problem, Too used to the system. When you become too used to the system, you know how to manipulate the system, you know how to manipulate the elections, you know what to do to tilt the election in the favor of someone else. So maybe it would give people a little bit more confidence if we had a different leadership every other time we had elections. But the cost of it also needs to be taken
But the question
into
is, Ruth, even as we go to Joe, because I know Meshack will have a good rejoinder for Joe. But the thing is, then the question is the problem the people or the institute? Because we fired a lot of IEBC commissioners, but we keep complaining again. Now it was Hassan, it is now Chebukati. I mean, we're always firing them. So is the problem the institution or the people?
The problem is the people.
Because even if we put Ruth, they'll still fire you again.
No, the problem.
Next year they'll be saying Ambogo must go.
I think the problem is the people who are at the leadership of the institution. You cannot, the system itself cannot, a system cannot run itself without the people. So it's definitely the people and the character of the people at the leadership of the IEBC. What kind of people are we electing to these positions? If we were to go by the interviews that were being done recently, some of the characters that were presenting themselves for the positions of IEBC commissioners were very questionable characters, people whose academic documents could not even be verified. And one would ask themselves, how did they even pass because before the names were submitted, the ultimate names that would now be presented for, for that would now go to the interview stage, one wonders how did they even pass the first level to even get to the point of, having interviews. Meaning if already their academic credentials are questionable, some of them had questionable reputation in terms of, some of their past dealings, and they still made it to the interview stage. You ask yourself, what kind of system is this that was running this kind of interviews? Because when you have such people making it to the interview stage, you ask yourself which competent people had been bypassed, for the positions, for us to get to the point of presenting names with questionable characters for the interview process. So personally, for me, I think it's the people at the helm of of IEBC and how the system itself is set up.
Okay, Khalende, what are your thoughts? Why are you laughing?
I don't know if I was beating around the bush.
You need to beat the bush itself. Okay.
One thing that we need to acknowledge is that our electoral system has come from far. We have moved from Mulolongo system up to date where we are currently. And actually, I can tell you that we have built an electoral system that is tamper-proof. According to the Kriegler recommendation, we have tried to follow all those recommendations to build an electoral system and electoral management that at least we can achieve to a result that is verifiable, it is accurate, and actually the competitors or the players can accept. Sometimes we can use football to paint a picture of what is happening to our election system.
Okay.
Currently, FIFA, through other bodies, football bodies, they have built a system, a refereeing system, to an extent that you can pick somebody here from Kenya, and you can pick a referee here from Kenya to go and ref a match there, and at least all the teams will be contented. And that is basically what we have tried to do in this country. After the 2007 election, Kriegler report recommended some of the issues that need to be highlighted. And among those issues were highlighted, and through Orengo and Kraitu Murungi led committee, we established some of those issues, and we actually managed to integrate them. Even through a case, I think it's Joho's case in court, where the court declared that elections are going to be declared at the polling station. So to an extent that we have reached where when we were doing these by-elections, somebody said something and I was like, what does it mean? That it's only a stupid candidate who loses an election and complain the elections were rigged. Because if you have serious agents at every polling station, if you have serious agents outside mobilizer helping you, at the end of the day, IEBC cannot rig an election. It is actually your stupidity and your agents who rig your elections. And I saw it with my own eyes in Juja, and I saw it with my own eyes in Kiamba. If you
didn't use anybody's
serious agents and you have a serious candidate, you cannot complain that the elections were rigged. We will only say, I've lost an election. Because those are the only people who can rig the election. Okay. Then there's also an issue.
Wow.
You are naive.
And there's also an issue. Because if you look at our laws, initially our elections laws were scattered all over. But today we have managed to amalgamate and bring our elections into, immediately from the Constitution, we have an IEBC Act, we have an Elections Act, and we have an elaborate electoral system which has been articulated from 81 to 87. So what we are actually saying is this. We have an independent institution that has been given mandate to manage our electoral process. Okay. We must respect it. We must give it its support that is required. We are 1 year to an election. We cannot start complaining about individuals in IEBC. We cannot start complaining about IEBC. And yet we had 4 years to put everything in order so that we conduct a free and fair election that at the end of the day, we accept the results and we give the person who has been given the mandate opportunity to serve Kenyans.
Okay. Meshack Odede.
Yes. Gerard, I think my brother is a bit naive.
He has not lost an election.
But I'm glad we are headed to 2022 and we will switch the seats. He will come to sit where I'm seated.
He'll be the one who will be saying IEBC.
And he will say what I'm going to say today.
Irreducible minimums.
Exactly. So, Joe, don't get lost. Be around. We are hoping to have this discussion after 9th of August next year. There are things we are forgetting. The first thing to me about IEBC is not just what the politicians say. It is also what touches on our money. Gerard, we were in court, and the court said this election was not conducted in accordance with the law. That's the Supreme Court judgment. And that election, the country spent about 40 billion or more. So who made us lose that money? Because it is election that was nullified. So it is null and void. It's like it never happened.
Yes.
So how did Kenyans lose 40 billion and nobody has been put to account for this money? Isn't it worth a debate? Even if we are so eager to go for another election and we feel like we have numbers, isn't it worth it stopping for a moment and saying, wait a minute, we lost 40 billion in that election. The court declared. So who actually led us to conduct an election outside the law, which made the court to actually... So who was that? So isn't it worth just 1 minute to say, wait a minute, even as we bring other commissioners in the commission, there are also those who are part of the other commission. But something went on around that time. We lost as a country, all taxpayers, not only people who formed government, even those of us who are on the street, lost part of that money. Wait a minute, who is actually supposed to take that? Who led us outside the law to conduct that election? But even if somebody else did, wasn't there someone at the top who could have returned us back to the root? Because right now we are talking economy and we are blaming Uhuru. Whether it is the ministers or whoever did whatever is wrong, we are not looking at them. We are saying, Uhuru, this is your government and the economy has gone down. And the likes of Joe are very good with that. They are now talking about their own economy, which they destroyed. And we are not in that debate now. Don't be cheated. So that is my question. Why are we losing this conversation around where we can lose 40 billion and we are just okay? And we are saying, let's just go into another election peacefully. You know, this commission is not supposed to be tampered with. We also know the court orders, which were not followed until today. In case they were followed this morning, I don't know. But some servers are still in France or wherever they are. I don't know where they are. The last time, the IEBC...
But you guys have not asked for the servers. Now you are in a place. Or you can say, open the servers.
Let's not divert to that. Let's just stick to this.
You are the one who mentioned servers.
Tomorrow, there will be another case in court. Will we have the same IEBC who are told, go and do this by the court, and they don't do? What do you think should be happening? We should be saying, if the court has ruled, let's just adhere to that. Up to now, we still don't know what happened. Then when the conversation comes, some people are just saying, let's have this conversation. Are we both okay having Chebukati at the helm of election, given the reputation he has and history? this is just like normal life. You have a friend, you have a woman, you have a man you're dating, and some ugly things keeps happening.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, let's just take it to the next level.
The altar.
I mean, the whole reason for being in a relationship is marriage. So let's forget about everything. I mean, close to your marriage, you cannot tell your woman she's wrong. You know, that's the kind of a thing somebody is telling us.
But why do you have to keep dating this woman for 4 years?
Election, so we cannot.
Why not every day when the wedding is almost close, you start saying this woman is not good? Well, you have 4 years.
Thank you.
You are using that woman.
No. Thank you. That is a very good one. Gerard, we need to understand history as it is, and we are not going to excuse Joe for being young or anybody for being young. You can read because history has been penned down. I think there are things we pick, Joe, from politicians in the pulpits or altars that are not true, and it is not good to continue with them. In 1992, there are people who disputed elections, and we know. Matiba was in front. Jaramogi was in front. Those are the people who are thinking, according to the time, that they had a chance to beat Moi. In 1997, Raila did not dispute election. He actually joined Moi. When Kibaki was pulling him, let's go to court. And it is Kibaki who led the dispute team to the court and whatever, and then Raila joined. In 2002, Raila did not dispute any election. So I don't know how you pick lies from politicians or in the rallies and you bring to a show that says the common denominator, because you use good words which means nothing. What is that common denominator? The only common denominator is that election has never been free, fair, transparent, credible, and accountable.
How is the denominator?
The common denominator.
Hi, about your denominator. Last topic, then we move to fungue simu. Maana watu wa bunge la mwananchi wameanza kulia. Kwa hivyo last question, then we move in.
Nakuru declaration.
Ndio naona mambo Nakuru. Kuna yenye wako nayo Nakuru.
Naivasha ama ni Nakuru?
Baba ako nayo Nakuru. Na anaitwa nani? Oka wako nayo Naivasha. And these are coalition partners.
Very interesting.
Coalition, Ambogo. Coalition these coalitions of the unwilling.
Is not far from Naivasha.
So you can crisscross. If you agree, you can cross the road.
if you discuss,
because give me 10 minutes, I'll be there. Naivasha. Very interesting times. Same coalition partners, different coalitions.
Meshack na Ambogo watuambie.
All of them.
You are in a coalition, but you are in denial.
Yeah.
All of them.
Wanadanganya watu ati ya
What?
coalition.
All of them.
Yes.
Were in court. All of them.
Yes.
The last man. All of them again. They moved to NASA. All of them. Now, they're almost moving to, I don't know, Oka or which one. Yeah. But the question is, these same guys, they can say, now, mimi, siwezi shika ujamata. No dede. Eri mninyonge. Na wasema, don't tuongee kidogo. Then they end up in the same place. And I mean, from Mombasa, president called them to Mombasa. Yes. They sat down. They came out not greeting each other. Yeah. Now they have gone to Naivasha. Now every other person is having their own declaration. Coalition of the unwilling. And what is it about, such, if these people form government that don't seem to have an ideological agreement on anything? Aye. What would happen? And why? No, I'm just saying because then why I did it. Because these are people, near Mudavadi keeps arguing and saying, no, I cannot support you. Yeah. Kalonzo Musyoka has aired the same. I think the only person who has been sober about is Raila because he has not come out really antagonistic against anybody. Yeah. He's kept his cool. But when you look at all these partners, Wetangula, Kalonzo, and Mudavadi, they have all expressed their dissatisfaction in the coalitions and the coalition agreements. Yes. And why the push and pull? And what is the end game? If finally they decide now, moja tu, tushikane moja tu.
I think the first thing is that we need to interrogate when these individuals were coming together in 2017. What was the end game? The end game was that in case they were to form government, each of them, based on the contribution in terms of the votes, the members of parliament, if they were to form government, they would all have a certain stake in government. And that's basically is the purpose of any coalition formed during, political seasons to allocate yourselves to have a share of power once you get to government. But I think one thing that they needed to appreciate is that the purpose for that coalition was not fulfilled, that they did not take over power as they thought they would. And at that point is where the intended obligations of that coalition would ceded to exist, you know? So I think where the bitterness was coming from was the fact that, yes, we were together, but now, you know, we got to a point where our agenda did not succeed, but one of us seems to be doing better than the rest. You know, one of us seemed to have moved on and joined government and appears to be doing okay, has forgotten about us. And that's where the bitterness, you know, the bitterness within this coalition was coming up, yeah? I think, you know, the four of them coming together, that is Kalonzo Musyoka with Wiper, Mudavadi with ANC, Wetangula with Ford, and Gideon Moi with KANU, is pretty much just to replicate what they had back in 2017, you know, with the hope that they will make government. But for me, as someone who is observing from the outside, I am very keen to see, I don't know how easy it will be for them to come to an agreement as to who will be the flag bearer, because the moment OCA was formed, what seemed to happen from the word go is that Mudavadi ran off and started, you know, presenting himself as a presidential candidate, going around the country, you know, mobilizing various parts of, you know, pretty much visiting various parts of the country. He's been to Nyeri, he's been to I think Nyandarua, he's been to Nakuru, in the company of the various governors, and just trying to popularize his bid. But then a recent, you know, one would automatically think that, you know, from that, you would think that from that kind of kujituma, that he would automatically become the flag bearer for OCA as a presidential candidate. But then you have Kalonzo Musyoka, who days before this seminar that they are having, decides to launch his command center. And you know, when you're launching a command center, you're basically saying,
you're ready to command.
I am ready to command. You know, this will be my base of operations for my campaigns as a presidential candidate. And now there is discussion that, you know, what is now at the center of these conversations is who has the numbers, who has the influence, who has the connections, you know? And so basically these are the things that these people have to consider before deciding who becomes a flag bearer. Honestly, in my considered view, I have a feeling that they will get to a point where they will be stuck. Because there has been intel, I don't know how true this is. There is intel coming from this meeting of theirs that on day one, the conversation was, what are your numbers? Each of them was asked, what are your numbers? So you have
so Wetangula and Mudavadi brought the same numbers.
This is a very serious conversation, guys. Let's not
Because now, Ambogo,
when I'm discussing this,
let's assume you and Odede,
Yes.
husband and wife,
yes,
you have the same children.
yes.
And now they're saying, now everybody come with your own children. So how do you will photocopy the children?
You know, you guys, this is a very serious conversation.
Anyway,
You know, we are trivializing. This is very serious. Mtafanya waluya wanikasirikie na hapa tunafanya hesabu. So Wiper comes and says, we have Wiper says we have 23 members of parliament. So Kalonzo says I have 23 members of parliament in Bunge. And C comes and says sisi tuko na 14. Then Wetangula and Ford Kenya comes and says tuko na 11. Na KANU wakasema tuko na 10. So of course if you look at that mathematics, obviously Kalonzo Musyoka looks like he should be, looks like he's ahead of the pack. But then there's another intel that comes out that Kalonzo Musyoka thought he was leading. Kumbe Wetangula and Madividi have decided they are combining their numbers. You know? Sasa if you combine Wetangula's 11 and Madividi's 14, you have what? 25.
Yes.
But then now intel also comes out that within this OCA, Gideon and Kalonzo are actually not very keen about working with Mudavadi as a presidential candidate. there has been a lot of talk from especially KANU has been very vocal to state that they would want to. They're still keeping their cordial relationship with Raila Odinga, and in fact, I've seen some members of KANU coming out very strongly and saying that they are actually keen on working with Raila Odinga, and also now the intel comes out that KANU has decided to join hands with Kalonzo Musyoka, and they are now thinking, of combining numbers. And if you combine the numbers, they have 33 members of parliament. So it's a very complicated, mathematics, and it's one that puts this Oka at a very delicate position right now. And I don't know if they fail to agree on who becomes the flag bearer, will there be a falling apart? Will there be a falling apart? Because Kalonzo, I'm told, is very keen on being in government this time around, and his keenness on being in government will put him in a position where he's he's always been very calculative with his mathematics, where he's saying, I'd rather join someone else who I think has a higher chance of winning and deputize that person, and for that reason my community will have some stake in government than be with a coalition or be in coalition with someone whose chances of winning are very low, so it's very complicated mathematics. I don't know what will happen. I don't know whether they'll wait for the smoke signal to come out, but that's where they are at right now, and we can only wait to see. And honestly, in my view, I think if they fail to agree, this it will be very. You'll see an immediate shift of people going back to align themselves with Raila Odinga. There's a likelihood of that happening. Yeah.
Khalende. Tato hapo gulu.
Nilikuwa nimengoja nisikie ya kutoka kwa ODM. Because me I'm not in that coalition.
What is your observation?
I want to hear from ODM.
So we go to ODM first. Okay. You guys are refusing to get married.
They are part of the story.
Italy ODM inasema aje.
Let me just tell you, Joe. There is very little to discuss at this time. Trust me, there is still a long time to go. Elections in Kenya can change. Anything can change even within a month to an election. Given the history we have had with election coalition buildings from the time Raila said Kibaki Tosha, none of them actually happened a year before. All of them were happening very close to the election. What they are trying to do is create perception right now, capture the imaginations of people. Of course, you must give it to him, Musalia and the team. One Kenya Alliance has captured a lot of imagination. Whether you dispute or you accept, people are talking about One Kenya Alliance. And that is what politics is all about. Get people to talk about you. If nobody is talking about you,
you have no future.
Then you have no future in politics. So they have gotten people to talk about them. Even if some people want to ridicule or do anything, but at least you are sparing time to talk about them. That means they are something already. So from my end, One Kenya Alliance is not yet One Kenya as it is. There is still a possibility of one or two pulling the opposite direction and running with other people. There is also a possibility that all of them joins another group. There is a team which is being run by the deputy president as Hustlers Nation. Even though they are living in denial, saying, we don't want coalitions. It is just one party. By default, in this country, you will find yourself in a coalition whatsoever. Because right now, I don't know whether the deputy president will look at Moses Kuria in the eye and say, I don't want you here if you insist on having your party. Will he say that? I highly doubt that. Will he look at Kiunjuri and say, if you don't leave your TSP, don't come here. I'm not dealing with people like you. He will not do that. He will play safe and say, even if I add 2 from Kiunjuri, it's a good number. Even if I add 1 from... So at the end of the day, by default, we are now a coalition kind of a country. So there is that coalition, which I see, and there is the coalition that is being built slowly from ODM and Jubilee A. This Jubilee B is now UDA. So Jubilee A and ODM are building something which clearly can be seen as a coalition coming up, although they have not declared it officially that we have a coalition. But their working relationship, body language, can tell that some people are building something on this corner. So the One Kenya Alliance is also trying to stick together, but there is a possibility of all of them joining either of those two. That is one. There is also a possibility of all of them sticking together and going all the way to elections. We cannot dispute that as well.
What is the possible possibility? Raila is issuing a statement in a
Who is going to be the candidate?
No,
Bearer.
they were in NASA and they found a candidate. They can still find a candidate in Oka.
Which one?
All of those people are good presidential materials. Numbers inaweza kuwa shida kidogo. But this coalition might run, Gerald, believe me, this coalition, One Kenya, might run up to the ballot and they then join whoever. If they don't make it to government, force a rerun or anything like that, and then
Tilt the scale.
Because 50% plus 1 is not a joke, trust me. We all know it was being forced. 50% has been forced in 2013 and all the way.
So Raila is going to join Oka?
Not Raila joining Oka. I'm saying the One Kenya Alliance may run on their own up to the ballot, and then if there is a rerun, they might side with one side. And be part of government in that particular way. Or they might decide today to join one particular group, either group of the DP or this group ODM are trying to craft with Jubilee. Or they can also split to both groups. There is a possibility of Gideon and Kalonzo running to join Raila and Jubilee. And then these other guys also joining deputy president. Those are all possibilities in politics. You can never say no. When we are in the podium, we hit the other side as much as we can because that is what our audience want to hear. Because if you are coming vague, we begin to look at you like, Ama, you are a mole in our camp. Why are you not saying things like
there are always moles in ODM.
So, but we all know there have always been moles.
So what are you declaring today, Nakuru? Or you are forming your own coalition?
My stand is
be straightforward, be direct.
Don't be vague.
I'm not being vague.
Let's go to the Hague.
What I'm saying is the One Kenya Alliance still has a lot of options, but there are people in One Kenya Alliance who the history might lead us into thinking. Gideon Moi don't know the opposition politics. He has never done it. He's not going to do it. That's just to be honest with you.
Also, Musyoka does not like opposition politics.
Gideon got into power and has been aligning himself on the side of government all the way. There is one card they are pulling all the times. When they are pushed to the corner that tell us, are you One Kenya? They say, we have a coalition agreement with Jubilee. And the law does not allow us to be in two coalitions. And we are, as you can see in Parliament, in Senate,
we are still observing.
We are actually having the leadership of the Senate and all that. So how can we walk out of that and join? So wait. So they are, in simple terms, they are saying the decision you are pushing me to make now is not possible now. It's like a woman you are unakatia, Give me time. Give me time. So Gideon is just saying, give me time. And the history keeps thinking with evidence that he has not been so much into the opposition thing. One funny thing about the whole story of One Kenya, when they were leaving NASA, they cited ODM to be the bully guy. ODM is very bullish, ODM is very selfish, ODM is all this. Then they move aside and form One Kenya, and then they ask, Raila, you can come.
Kuja sasa. Karibu.
Karibu. And we are open. Even Raila can come. You are calling a bully to come and bully you when you have just I mean you have just stormed out of a marriage that
Okay, you are a bully, but come and bully me in my house. Okay. Joe Khalende. At least come and beat me at all.
But one thing, ODM is not going back to the streets. No. It is time for William and his team.
You are tired with we.
No, we are tired with we. The reason is, I mean, Gerard, to be honest with you, what is DP doing that Raila has not done in any election before? Tell me. Is it the diaspora team Raila has had, diaspora who could even give hammers and all that? Raila was not president. Is it rallies that are full? Raila has had the numbers in rallies that DP has not attracted up to now. Is he president? The only thing that Raila is doing new, and I accept in this election, is going into an election when he is friends with the incumbent. There is no election Raila has gone to when he is friends with the incumbent. All the election he goes when they are already on the opposing side and throwing punches against the incumbent. This is the only difference I see.
Okay.
And you saw the incumbent, especially even in 2017, when back to the influence, quote unquote, when the candidates, Ruth, you were there, when the candidates were being called by IEBC to discuss some matters that were raised. You saw how Uhuru came in. And he comes in 1 minute and asks Chebukati, "Auna pesa?" Chebukati says, "We have the money, Your Excellency. Go and conduct election." Nini wewe? Mkutano imeisha. But when it comes to NASA, Chebukati would be on his feet and stamping authority as the IEBC, and nothing will happen without our. But Uhuru comes in not as president, as the Jubilee presidential candidate. But he comes and say, "Nini unatuita hapa? Hauna pesa? Si tumekupatia pesa wewe? Go and do it." So that is what we lack. And that is what we must have this time around. Truth be told.
You have a system.
We have our system. The influence is going to be there no matter what.
Whether they cut me or neck me.
Anybody lying to himself that, election will be. If you are left to win Juja and you are left to win Kiambaa, that was supposed to get you to a corner where we will tell you the same thing.
And then
that
you will accept that IEBC should remain like that.
Exactly. It is to lead you to that corner. And then we will ask you the same things you're asking Akina Orengo. Is it the same IEBC who declared you the senator? Why didn't you stop accepting? Isn't it the same IEBC who declared all your by-elections? IEBC is fair. So we are leading you to that corner. And I'm glad you are getting into that corner. Perfectly.
But it's you who want Chebukati out. Anyway, Joe Khalende.
We want them to defend Chebukati. Then after defending Chebukati, you know Chebukati is this character of a water. If it takes the glass shape, it is glass. If it goes into a bottle, it is a bottle. So let's have him and then mold him to what we want. And then when you are complaining, isn't it the same Chebukati you defended? Isn't it the same Chebukati who gave you Kiambaa and George?
You see, before Chebukati story, what I would like to say is that Waswahili husema vita vya panzi ni furaha ya kunguru. Na sasa sisi wana UDA, sisi watu wa Hustler Nation saa hii, si tunakaa kando, tunaachia uwanja wapambane to build a coalition. But to just say one or two things, Oka is a mirage, hence the name Serelak Coalition. Oka is an idea which just died from the day it was.
It was funny.
Yeah, because look at the individuals within Oka and our coalitions. The history of our coalitions are built by individuals who bring numbers from their stronghold. if you look at these guys, they cannot be able to raise 4 million votes. If you cannot be able to raise more than 4 million votes in a coalition, that is not a coalition. ODM, a single party, UDA, a single party, can raise more than that. So basically, you cannot tell me that you are going to a coalition which cannot raise numbers. The second thing is this. 2022, I'm foreseeing a situation where it will be Ruto versus Raila as two-horse race. Then a third force will be Mudavadi. The rest of the guys, Wetangula, Gideon, and Kalonzo, will find a way between the three guys. That's how 2022 is going to form. Because clearly, right now, you can see it is Ruto versus Raila. So what we are trying to look for is the third guy and the fourth guy. They're always there. The others will also be there. The Martha Karuas, the Peter Kenneth, they will be there. So that is how it's going to be formed. Then if you want to know that Mudavadi is serious and he has already declared that he's going to the ballot, look at the political actors around Mudavadi. They are serious, they mean what they are saying, and they know what they are aiming for.
Like which one?
It's going to be a 2013 case. They are just using the same script for 2013.
One for Madimon.
One, Mudavadi is looking to build. Mudavadi has come to the realization that he will be the president of this country, but not 2022, not 2027, but 2032. How he gets there, it's something that he needs to work, an arithmetic that he needs, and a plan to build going forward. Because Mudavadi has realized to build the gravitas, to build that oomph, and build that political vehicle that can ascend you to the house at the hill. It needs you to be in the field by yourself in those murky waters. So that's what he's trying to do. So hii maneno ya oka nini it's neither here or there, but Mudavadi has already made up his mind. Kalonzo and Gideon, they have already negotiated their deal with Raila. They're just trying to play games.
They've already negotiated with Raila. Gideon has negotiated with Raila already.
Gideon has already negotiated. And that's why Oka or Selelak was a mirage. Because immediately they formed Oka, Kalonzo started negotiating his way with Raila. Gideon started negotiating his way with Raila. They were just trying to find a place where they can rest a bit while they are looking for another spouse.
Walambe glucose.
Wakilamba glucose.
Why?
At the end of the day, the politics that our friends are playing is the usual politics that we have been doing in this country since time immemorial, and it has never taken us anywhere. Politics are along regional blocks of which tribe, hii region inaleta kurangapi, and things like that. But for us, what we are waiting is for them to finish their seminar, to build their coalition along ethnic lines. For us, we are telling them, we can share power, but for us, we are ready to empower people. For us, we are talking about the economic revitalization of this country, so that we can put money in people's pocket. For them, they can talk about those things of BBI. For us, we are telling Kenyan that we are united. We are one. But our problem is the economy. We are not having equal opportunity. We are not being given a fair chance in this country so that we can empower ourselves, so that we can maximize our potential as young people, as the people who are in business. At the end of the day, their coalition is talking about borders, Ambogo being takataka. For us in our coalition, we are saying that those at the bottom of the pyramid, this time round, we must discuss about them. After finishing their seminar in Naivasha and Nakuru, the next seminar that they should organize is about Ambogo. It's about borders. It's about the people at the bottom of the pyramid. It's about how we can put issues on the table and address that the small businesses in this country can improve. How we can improve our economy. How we can reduce our debt burden. I know Meshack is ready to tell me about Ruto being in this current government. Even Kibaki was in Moi's government. Then he was given an opportunity to be the president. He performed wonders. So what we are saying, that the ideas and the beautiful philosophies and the economic policies that we have, if we are given a chance, we can improve this country going forward. But this time round, we cannot do politics the way we have been doing since independence. We need to change our politics and discuss issue. Let us build strong institution in terms of political parties, as it has been explained in Article 91. Broad-based political parties that absorb everybody.
But you guys have left to
ndani, Musomali yako ndani, Mukikuyu yako ndani, Muluya yako ndani. The moment you are in a political party, you will be able to discuss issues. I always admire ODM, but for some reasons, ODM has been systematically going down. ODM was a strong national political party that was having everybody on board. How I wish Raila could have maintained and managed ODM to remain the way it is, so that Jubilee or now UDA, because Jubilee is the past, now UDA can also build a strong national parties that can be able to absorb everybody on board and not go on regional or ethnic lines. Yes.
Okay. Odede, so do you have something from Nakuru and Naivasha?
Why are you diverting me? Why are you diverting
No, because you are closing on that collision.
Serious mistakes that have been committed.
Like which mistake you are finishing, so you wanted to know what is going, what
There
do you
are
expect?
serious mistakes that have been committed here, and the VAR was very much there available. Let me begin with you, Gerard. I am expecting One Kenya Alliance principles to move a step from at least to achieve one thing, if not everything. I think we as Kenyans are just in a hurry. Coalition building takes time. Those negotiations takes time, and they can be as many as possible. Even in the NASA, those people were meeting almost every day. Yeah, Raila, Musalia, Kalonzo, and Wetangula in NASA were meeting almost every day. So let us not expect One Kenya to meet once and come back to us on a press conference saying this is our candidate. The negotiations has to really, because they are coming from an experience of NASA, and they know the things that went.
Then why didn't they just fix those things in NASA?
But that experience of NASA is, that's how they lost the election. They
didn't lose election. Wait. You see the mistakes we are committing. They didn't lose no election. Election was nullified. It was null and void. And then they didn't run in the other election. So where do you come from with this election that was lost? Even the political parties, whatever, is not giving money on the basis of presidential election because it was null and void. So let's not just throw words. We need to give facts and evidence. Did Raila lose election? No. Election was rigged and then court nullified. So that is settled. What I'm saying is the problems they faced in NASA could help them understand themselves better in the One Kenya Alliance. I appreciate that we have moved. For me, Gerard, we have moved as a country. Though many people choose to be pessimistic about where we are going, some of us choose to read the signs of time and also read the history to understand that we moved from an election where an individual like President Moi could simply tilt election the way he wants because he was picking everybody he wants and the shortest line wins and all that. Then we moved to an election where we could go to court. And in 2013, Raila went to court and the court decided the way they decided on technicalities. And Raila went ahead and tested the court even further in 2017, and the court even nullified that election. So for me, those are not failures. For me, as a country, those are steps and building our democracy to even a better way. So we moved from the individual, like the Moise era of election, where any short line could be declared the winner, to an election where we could go to court and the court could make a declaration. And 2013 and 2017 has proved that a lot. So for me, there is a bit of building democracy that is metamorphosizing to a better thing. We moved from those elections where we had 20-something presidential candidates, with some of them keeps getting 0 vote. When I was young, I had so many names in the ballot. then we are in a place where coalitions have been built. And I think it started from 2002 when the team decided to combine force against KANU, and then 2007 Raila was building ODM, but it came more like a coalition. Yes, it was one party, but because the regional balancing was in it, it became a really
Pentagon.
a formidable force. Yes, Pentagon. Then we moved to 2013 where URP combined with TNA and ODM combined with Ford Kenya and Wiper, and here we are. Now we are discussing a different thing. Then 2017 NASA and Jubilee Coalition. So systematically, I think we have metamorphosized from one corner where we had 20-something presidential candidate. Anybody declared himself a candidate was a candidate. And to a point where we are now discussing, can we run together? Who can leave the space for who? I mean, that to me is a big thing. It's a step in the right direction. Even though we are ridiculing one Kenya, but it is good that gentlemen are sitting around the table and saying, Wetangula, can you leave it for me? Gideon, can you leave it for me? That to me, no, for me, to me, that is a big thing. That's a step. Other than if all four of them were in the ballot, we would have wasted more money. Because ballot printing.
Now you're worried about money.
We would have wasted because we all know.
You cannot run a village party and claim that you are.
That's why they are combining so that they move from village to something national. So if you combine KANU, if you combine Ford Kenya, you combine ANC and Wiper, it is no longer village. But if you leave Ford Kenya alone, it looks more village. So for me, what they are doing should be actually supported. That they are trying to get someone to lead them, and together behind that person, and they become a formidable force. They will become very attractive to you, even in the UDA. Trust me, once they are able to unite and say, Kalonzo, you are the one leading us, or Musalia, you are the one leading us, or Gideon, or Wetangula, your boss will be looking for them chini ya maji. Trust me, they will become attractive. Even the other side, trust me, these guys comes together and find one leader, both sides will be looking for them. It will be automatic. Whether Raila and ODM are on the other side, ODM and Jubilee on the other side, and UDA on this other side, they will be sending emissaries to this one Kenya Alliance team once they have been united. The reason why nobody is sending anyone is because we are still thinking that they are small pieces. Once the pieces comes back together and is glued, everybody will be running to work with them. Can we form a pre-election coalition? Or can we have an understanding so that on the other side we work together? Because even on the other side, as a president, you still need numbers. Kibaki was president with 40 against ODM's 100
but
or something.
The objective of building OKA was to be able so that they can strengthen themselves and fight Raila in the coalition.
That's what you say. They didn't say that.
Because
they want to get to power.
Yeah. Let me tell you, the main reason that Mudavadi, Kalonzo, and Weta bolted out of NASA, their thinking was that Raila was a bully partner. So they were going somewhere to consolidate so that they can come back and fight the bully partner.
Oh, but they're coming again to say, let's talk.
That the glue of NASA was ODM. Because the person who is in charge, the person who takes charge of the marriage or of the relationship is the person in charge.
So Raila is the
person who determines if no. And Raila technically allowed NASA to collapse for a simple reason. Under the NASA agreement, he has an obligation to endorse Kalonzo. That is the simple reason why Raila bolted out. Actually, he did not bolt. He allowed those Mudavadi and Kalonzo to bolt out of NASA. Because technically, Raila was seeing ahead. If NASA could have remained, he was under the agreement that they tabled with the Register of Political Party, he was supposed to support Kalonzo.
But you see, you're forgetting that the agreement stated that if they won, you know, the agreement was based on whether they win the elections, and they did not win the elections. So that's the argument that ODM has always put forth.
That was the argument, but Kalonzo was still pushing that the argument was after the 2022 election.
He's the one to be endorsed.
He's the one to be endorsed.
Allow me to
Ruth Ambogo tukifunga.
Yes,
We're already 18 minutes past time.
Allow me to weigh in on this conversation.
As you close.
And
this
I
two will
think
never finish fighting.
hawatamaliza. But I want to weigh in on this conversation just to respond to some things that Joe has said, which did not sit right with me. I think you noticed my facial expression kept shifting as he kept on talking.
First of all, are you still in ANC? Let's begin from there. Kwanzia hapo kwanza. No, declare first. Are you still in ANC? No. Are you still in ANC?
Allow me to first make my point,
first
and
of all,
then I will respond to that.
are you still in ANC?
Wait, relax.
Are you still in ANC?
Kwanza wacha, let me just make my point first of all.
Why are you running away from your party?
Simuniacha niongee kwa page. Kuna vile nilikuwa nimepanga hivi nitaongea.
Haya.
You people are cornering me.
Haya, sema.
Anyway, one of the things that I want to say about Joe's statements are I would want to liken the kind of excitement that is happening in UDA to a new marriage, where you have just been recently married and you are now holding conferences across the country.
Can I disturb you?
Advising. Wait.
For a minute.
Yes,
I have someone here on call. Just for a minute. Jambo, bunga la mwenye nchi. Jambo.
Hello, vipi GB?
Fiti sana mambo.
Salama sana, salamia wakurugenzi wote wako hapo. Mambo mbili tu niseme haraka haraka.
Habari ya New Jersey.
One thing mimi nataka kuuliza, unajua mimi siwezani na hiki kizungu yao, nimeona wanaongea kizungu mingi.
Ruzungu ni mingi kidogo.
History mingi ambayo inakuwa mzito. So mimi ningependa tu kuuliza, leo ni mikutano ngapi inafanyika?
2, moja Nakuru, moja Naivasha.
No, kuna ya Thika pia.
Haya.
Ala, ya nani?
Kuna Thika na Moses Kuria na wakurugenzi wengine. Mimi nasema hivi. Ni
msimu wa mikutano.
Tatu zinafanyika safari moja. Kuna mahali kuna mahali penye tunapitiwa white, kuna kitu inatembea. Kisha hao watu wote wafanye mikutano yao yote. Wapate mtu watapanga, wajua watakutana na William Samoei Ruto.
Kwa debe.
Issue based politics. No, hata kabla ya debe. Issue based politics.
Okay.
Kama wataleta mtu ambaye atakuja kula maneno hapa kama hajui kuongea, ajue wanajipanga kwa mambo mzito sana. Kwa sababu siasa ya leo na wananchi wa leo wanataka issue, hawataki kujua history ya nini, sijui nini ilifanyika. Itakuwa issue based ya watu wanauliwa bure, watu wanaenda njaa, magonjwa inazidi. Issue based politics ndio watu watadili na. Kwa hivyo wajipange sawa sawa. Wajipange sawa sawa sana. Uda tumesimama. Ni hayo tu. Back to you.
Asante sana to you studio. Asante. Back to you ni Jesse.
Back to you in studio. Anyway, as I was saying, I think what is happening in UDA is premature excitement. Where you have come together in a marriage, mumefanya tu harusi juzi, sasa muna hold conferences across the country advising people on what a proper marriage should look like. Not forgetting you have not faced the challenges of a marriage to be able to sit down and convince people on what a marriage should look like. And what I mean by challenges is UDA is a fairly new party. This is a party that is still facing, excitement. You still have excitement of people joining in. And the moment people get to that point where they realize that we are in a political party, but we are here to also fight for our own interests. You see, the kind of excitement that is going on in UDA right now is focusing on who is bringing us together, which is William Ruto. And the excitement is around his candidature as for the presidential elections. But then the reality will hit you, members of UDA, when people start thinking about their own individual interests in terms of where they want to vie and whether they will get those seats or not. And when I talk about their own individual interest, what I mean is at the nomination stage, people will start considering questions such as, if I vie on a UDA ticket where we are 10 of us vying for the gubernatorial position, what are my chances that I will actually win that nomination certificate? And at that particular point is where the drama in UDA will start. People from various parts of the country will start considering their own individual aspirations and start saying, I want to support William Ruto, but I am not very sure that I will get a nomination in UDA. So what I will do is I will go and look for another party huko nje, and a party that aligns itself to UDA, and at that particular point I will say I am supporting William Ruto for presidency, but I am vying for my own candidature on my own political party. At that point is when UDA will realize that kuna kitu naitwa sarakasi na drama when it comes to coalition building, because people will pull apart. And what is already happening right now, when you see the 3 MKs coming together and saying, we as the central region, we are bringing together our own political parties, and we are coming to sit down with UDA to negotiate. That is the point where the headache will come for William Ruto, where he has to ask himself, how will I satisfy the interests of these people? In as much as I usually see William Ruto standing on podiums and saying, wale watu wanakutana kugawana uongozi, kupeana viti. He will find himself at a position where he will be meeting these people to discuss how will they allocate themselves power, because political parties, let's not lie to each other, in this country are formed and are organized for the purpose of deciding how do we allocate ourselves positions once we get to power. And that's the headache that William Ruto will have to deal with. Unfortunately for him, he will have to deal with it closer to the elections, which will be much more, which will have much more repercussions, as opposed to people who are dealing with it right now. Afadhali watu wenye wanapigana sahi wakisema, us we are going for conferences, we want to align our interests together, we want to know what do you want, and how do we come together to align these interests and then move forward. For William Ruto, if he does not accept the reality that political parties, they will get to a point where they will start asking, what is in store for us as we support you? If he doesn't deal with that question right now, he will deal with it closer to the elections. And at that point he will see people defecting closer to the elections, which will be very detrimental to him. So let's not lie to each other ati kuna watu wenye sahi ati their focus is on sera na wengine focus yao ni ya kugawana positions of power. Everybody is in this race to get power. Kila mtu ako kwa race kutafuta power. Tusidanganyane hapa ati kuna mwenye ako na issues na mwenye hana issues. So that's just the truth of the matter. Yes.
Okay. Tunafunga tackle of the day, kila mtu 30 seconds. Taanza na Khalende, alafu Meshack, alafu Ruth.
One thing we must appreciate in this country is that this time round our politics is not going to be the same. The discourse and the conversation all over, and the beautiful thing is that it has captured the imaginations of Kenyans, that we must move our politics from ethnic arithmetic into issue-based politics, where everybody is on board, and we are discussing about our economy, we are discussing how we must reduce our debt burden, we are discussing how we must help those at the bottom of the pyramid get opportunities and get equal chances where they can maximize their potential. That is the most beautiful thing. And another beautiful thing about 2022, my sister has already declared that she's on the race. This is also another opportunity that young people should come out and contest this vote. Let us not sit somewhere and wait for BBI to be passed so that there can be a youth council to appoint people. Let us go there and contest for this seat like other people, so that we have that better opportunity to be on the table of decision making, so that we can make laws and policies that are favorable to the fellow young people in this country.
All right, Meshack.
Yes, my tackle of the day are two things, very quick. William Ruto and team does not have any economic model. They just have a slogan. They just have a slogan.
And terminology.
And you have seen all over the media houses, no one has explained what that economic model is. This thing was told to them by David Ndii, who was the economic advisor of the NASA team. So how is it possible that when David Ndii advised then, it didn't make sense to William Ruto? It only makes sense that David Ndii is now advising the same from his side. In the NASA manifesto, all those things are there. Anything that you want to call bottom up is not different from devolution, which Raila Odinga and others have fought for. Devolution was actually meant to empower the common man on the ground. That's why we have things like public participations, which were not there before this constitution. Yeah? And we have we are even proposing to go further in the BBI to have what development funds. That means it is focusing on the common man. We started by bringing governance down to the people, and now we are following with money to the ground. That is bottom up. Anything else is a slogan. With
But again,
a very
bottom
hollow
up is not something that is there.
no, it is not there
That is
because
just
it is just a slogan
Now,
but
Maliza Haraka
with
Masamba.
nothing inside. Lastly, we cannot say it is just this time that we have thought about the common mwananchi. The
Exactly.
common mwananchi has been
always
there.
been.
And the common mwananchi has suffered. This has suffered so much in Kenya. But where were these people? They were at the helm of power. They used the same tie, they used the same shirts, they influenced all corners. And they made sure that even parastatals were having two tribes. Around 2013 to 2017, it was Khalende versus Kikuyu.
Time.
If you had 5 board members, 4 of them were from Khalende and Kikuyu, then 1 to just make sure it looks this way. This same guy has turned around, is telling us, now we want to build something for all Kenyans. Were all Kenyans in America that time? Only Kalenjins and Kikuyus were in Kenya. So they all of these other tribes just came back in 2017 and after the handshake.
Ruth.
My tackle is on 2 issues, and I will quickly rush through the first, which is that no form of economic model will rescue this country or even be of benefit to the common mwananchi if we do not have leaders of proper morals at the helm of leadership. And also 2, regarding the same, the only true way to liberate a people, no offense, in this country is to give them the actual positions of power. So when you talk about elevating the mamamboga, when you talk about trying to resolve issues affecting the boda guy, are you giving them a seat at the table, or are you sitting at the table and making decisions on their behalf without them being at that particular table? So I'd like to see how the common mamamboga and the boda guy, whether they will be given a seat at the table. And finally, for me, I'd like to say that we are witnessing a very unfortunate scenes in our country, especially when it comes to the safety and security of our young people across the country. And these are very unfortunate scenes. However, my take on that is that as a people, we need to have a moral consciousness that is not biased, When I talk about biasness, I mean, for the past few days, my Facebook memories have been reminding me of what was happening back in 2017, when there was a lot of killings that were going on, that followed the elections, a lot of killings that were going on, targeting certain communities. And some of us spoke very strongly against those killings, and in the process of us speaking up, we were labeled all manner of names. We were told we were fear-mongering. We were told, that we were just advancing political narratives. We were told that the people deserved to die. And now that we are seeing the tables shift and people from different communities or from other communities are now being targeted, or the killings are happening in other communities, we now ask ourselves, what position should we take? So this should remind us that whenever injustice is taking place in a country, we need to stand up in a unanimous voice, regardless of who is being targeted. Because if today you do not speak against the killings that are happening, tomorrow it could be your people, and who will stand up for you, Okay. So I think for me, when I look at those memories, reflecting back and just, Facebook reminding me of how viciously we fought against the killings that were taking place in 2017 and what is happening now, I am just, reminding the people that whenever injustice takes place, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of what community the victims are coming from, we need to unanimously stand up and speak against it.
Okay, Asante. I have someone from the UK. I'll give you just 1 minute, sir. Just strictly 1 minute. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Strictly 1 minute.
Jared, it's Ellie.
Yes, Henry.
I've been on your show before.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I know.
Yes, I just wanted to say that for me, this simple school of thought that democracy is a planted thing. It's not for our continent. If there was an alternative, it would be really a good thing. But it's just, since the multi-party democracy was introduced proper in Africa in the 90s, we've still had military coups. We've had, incumbents have the advantage over their opponents. And then we just talk about these individuals as if the ordinary people don't matter. This Western democracy, I just don't know what alternative we have, but it's just a joke. And anyway, that's my school of thought, because I've been listening to these conversations you guys are having, and we'll be talking the same things the next 5 years, 10 years. And so something serious is not happening. I'm not saying that Western countries are much better, because we know what happened in America in January. They behaved like some of us, the way we do our election things. But why do they not kill each other often as we do during the election process? And that's my worry about this so-called Western democracy.
All right. Thank you so much, Andre.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your comments, and say hi to the guys in the UK.
Thank you.
God bless. Thank you. Hi. Thank you, guys. It has been a Tackle, State of the Nation edition, the 17th of August 2021, and it ends now. Take care until we see you again tomorrow on Siasa Wednesday. Wikadhoni wa mwisho ba tuambie mambo ya hema kuliendaje. Until then, see you. Bye bye and take care.